Welcome to Strange Occurrences, Abnormal Tales with a Gen X twist. I'm your host, Rose Stone, also known as Miss Riche Life on all the socials, where you can find simply luxurious lifestyle on a budget on my YouTube channel and my blog, Riche Life, attached to that YouTube channel through my TikTok profile. Please pardon my voice today as I am suffering from the high grass pollen allergy, but I wanted to talk to you about my old podcast today, which was called Messy Closet, The Spiritual Journey of Generation X, where we explored the 70s, 80s, and 90s and the lessons my friends and I may or may not have learned, but it literally turned into Strange Occurrences the way that it was going. So the title and the content didn't quite match. So I want to talk to you about one of my all-time favorite television shows, which is currently celebrating its 45th anniversary, and let you hear my original podcast about this show and the prediction I sort of made. Well, I kind of put it out there in the universe that I was looking for a specific TV show or shows to come back. Now, what I am talking about is my favorite genre of movie, which is classic horror, and sci-fi, which is anything before 1990. And I know that there are a lot of great horror movies in the 90s, but I have to say that this show just brings back stuff from the 30s. Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney Jr., any movie that you could think of, The Bride of Frankenstein, which is my absolute favorite classic horror film, and so many Vincent Price movies. And if you don't know what I am talking about, I am talking about the show Svengoolie on MeTV, and it starts every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the show now runs for 2.5 hours. And if you don't know the MeTV station, that is memorable entertainment TV with everything that Gen X and Gen Jones and some millennials grew up watching. And what I had asked for was for MeTV to put in a cartoon network. And you will now hear that on my former podcast. You'll hear the introduction and the whole deal. Let me know what you think. And I talked about how I wanted to bring back a Cartoon Network with all of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and honestly, anything that goes back into the early 80s or 70s. There were these cartoons that existed for like a season or two, but they were fantastic. And I'm just looking forward to checking out this whole now Cartoon Network on MeTV. But let's get back to Svengoolie. So Svengoolie is a character created by Rich Cause. Well, it actually wasn't created by him. It was adopted by him. So 45 years ago, Rich Cause became the son of Svengoolie. And he now plays this iconic horror host, Svengoolie, where he wears a black top hat, a long black wig. He's got a mustache, a goatee. His eyes are all blacked out. He talks to a little rubber chicken. He's got a coffin set, and his original set is now in a Chicago museum because the show originally aired from Chicago. So he took over for the original Svengoolie, who was more of a hippie who hosted a horror show in the 60s. So he just looked like, not just, it was actually really an incredible costume. He was just a ghost zombie kind of hippie guy, long hair. He had a little bandana around his head, hippie shirt, bell-bottom pants. And Rich Cause came along as the son of Svengoolie. Now, this first aired September 18th, 1970. And that was the hippie guy. And his name was Bishop. They're only saying Bishop. He passed of a heart attack, actually. He held 3 Emmys and even toured with the Beatles and had faithful fans of today who recalled his short stint as the original Svengoolie. According to his family, Bishop, age 77, who lived in San Diego and worked in later years as at a restaurant, passed of this heart attack, but was always really happy that Svengoolie lived on. So this is really incredible because, the original Svengoolie was played by Jerry G. Bishop from 1970 to 1973, and he had a very hippie look. You know, the long bell bottoms, the long flowy shirt, long hair, bandana around his head, but with, zombie kind of makeup on. And the show still features, but back then featured horror and science fiction films hosted by this character named Svengoolie. So before Rich Kaz succeeded him in the role from 1979 on, before and after the commercial breaks, Svengoolie presents sketches, tells jokes, performs parody songs related to the film being aired. And the show is a long-running local program in the Chicago area, but it expanded nationally, like I said, onto MeTV. And now he's got the Sven Squad. So he was holding these auditions for a really long time, and he would put up everyone's audition tapes on, during his show. And sometimes he still does it. So we've got 3 of the squad, and they're pretty awesome. It's Svengoolie, Ignatius Malvolio Frankenstein, also known as Imp, and Nostalgia Ferratu, and they help do skits and they host the show with him. So this is just the cutest show. So Sarah Palmer is Svengoolie. She is an enchanting Hollywood or Hollyweird diva from the glamour age of cinema. Scott Grider is Imp, or Ignatius Malvolio Frankenstein, the devilishly integrating and slightly grating sly trickster who keeps claiming Svengoolie is his uncle. And Bill Leff is Nostalgia Ferratu, an 800-year-old vampire with amazing comedic timing. All of them do. There's lots of singing. There's lots of explaining the movies. And if you don't know MeTV, you can actually get it on the Friendly app. And the Friendly app has lots of things, the History Channel, Travel Channel, all different kind of things. It's about $8 a month, but it's got MeTV, and I actually pay the $8 a month just for that one channel because I love it so much, and I'm excited that my prediction of this Cartoon Network for all us Gen Xers is out there. So with that, I am going to let you listen to my episode of the Messy Closet podcast that morphed into Strange Occurrences, Abnormal Tales with the Gen X twist in its entirety. And I hope you guys enjoy my commentary about Svengoolie. All right, you guys, have a great one and check out my old podcast.
Welcome to Messy Closet, the spiritual journey of Generation X. I'm Roseanne Carlo, and here we explore the 70s, 80s, 90s in New York City and the lessons my friends and I may or may not have learned. We're coming to the end of spooky season, which I'm not too happy about. I wish we could extend it, but I'm here to talk about actually how to extend it. If you have not ever seen Svengoolie on MeTV, I am going to introduce you to something you will thank me for. So let's start with, who is Svengoolie? Svengoolie is a horror show icon. His first show aired in the Chicago area September 18th, 1970. So this was created by Jerry G. Bishop and directed by Chris Ochner. His show now, it has 8.6 rating out of 10 on IMDb, and 92% of Google users like his show. I love it. If you are a classic movie lover like I am, and a classic horror movie lover like I am, this is the show for you because it's not just classic horror, but classic sci-fi. Now, let me tell you a little bit of a story here. So back when I was a kid, when we had like 7 channels on TV with the dial that you would have to click yourself, every Sunday, Channel 11, which in New York is WPIX now, but Channel 11 every Sunday would play a horror movie like the Draculas, like the Nosferatu looking Dracula. And I would sit in this light blue velour chair that smelled like smoke in front of the black and white. No, it was a color TV, but the movie was in black and white. And I would be watching the movie. And as I've said, I grew up with my great-grandmother in my life, Molly. Molly was something else, and she was always dressed to the nines with her nails done and all her jewelry on and makeup. But Molly had a very funny, kind of twisted side. And I'm watching Dracula, and I see her out of the corner of my eye get down on her hands and knees, and she crawled around the back of the chair. And just when Dracula went to bite the woman, she dug her nails into my neck and went, ah, and I was like, ah! It was like hilarious. I know, most people wouldn't think that was hilarious. Most people would be traumatized by that, but I was not. So I'm not the biggest fan of like modern day horror movies. I don't know why. I think it's just the visuals for me. I'm that photosensitive. But what I love about the old horror movies is the way they were put together, the costumes, the lighting, the things that they had to use, the set design to make these movies happen. So Svengoolie spoofs a lot of these movies, and he'll always have a song about the movie and something funny. He'll give you facts about all of the actors in it and other works that they have done, which is kind of a little bit what I do too. So you get classic horror or sci-fi movie, you get a Hollywood history lesson, you get some jokes. He's got a rubber chicken. So if you've never seen what Svengoolie looks like, his show opens up with like this really cool animated laboratory with some great music. And then it comes to his coffin, and it's black with some, I think it's like purple, right? Yeah, it's purple satin lining. And he wears a top hat. And he's got dark curly hair, and he's got drawn on like widow's peaks and black around his eyes and a goatee, and people send him art. He's got a rubber chicken that he talks to. He's got a piano player, like I said, he does the songs, and he's just introduced so many movies that have been lost to time. So I'm talking Frankenstein horror movies from the 90s, and I just sit there and look at every single detail, from the clothing and the hair and the jewelry and the makeup to what they thought the set should look like, which is usually something set in the 1800s but somehow they ended up in like some, 18th century castle or 17th century castle. It's just so interesting to see where horror and sci-fi really began before we had things like Star Trek and Star Wars. So Svengoolie does so much to bring the history of everything, this horror genre, to life. So for me, I'm New York Eastern Standard Time. Svengoolie starts at 8 p.m. And again, this is MeTV, and MeTV is out of Chicago. So I get the station out of New Jersey, it says when I watch the show. But you really do get some of like the greatest, like, okay, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, Trilogy of Terror. That was a good one. Count Yorga Vampire, The Killer Shrews, Forbidden Planet, and this is one of the most critically acclaimed sci-fi movies ever. It's incredible. You have to see this movie. The set design alone and the colors used, the costumes, the whole just fantasy and fiction of this movie is incredible. It's definitely one of my favorites. We've got Abbott and Costello meet the Invisible Man, Frankenstein, 1970, Invaders from Mars. I mean, this whole world that he's created in giving us all of this just great cinema. I don't know. I'm very appreciative of it, and I think that everyone should be watching it. And he was just at Comic-Con because a few of my friends that do go, I have never been, took pictures with who they said was the real Svengoolie. So he's somewhat of a classic horror sci-fi icon. Actually, he is a big icon, and I enjoy his shows. I enjoy my Saturday nights, honestly, unless there's like something else to do. I'm watching the Svengoolie, and I look forward to it. And the cool thing is, after it is the original after it is actually Svengoolie. So Svengoolie is this like red tuna fish that's dressed exactly like him with the top hat and the hair and the eyes. And they spoof other horror movies with this zombie character, Trevor Ground, who used to work at a video store with VHS. And there you go with that. And then they have this weird blob. It's called Blobby, and it's just like a pink head with eyes, nose, and mouth, and it doesn't make any noise. So there's that. They've introduced a few other characters because I believe people are able to audition to be characters on this show, which sounds really cool. Like, he really brings his fans into it, into Svengoolie. He'll post the artwork and the letters that people write and all of those things. But Svengoolie's interesting because it just goes a little deeper into some more of like the gorier horror movies, which are the things that I wouldn't be able to watch in full if it weren't so entertaining the way it's brought to us. And then on Sunday mornings, Svengoolie has a 7 a.m. Gen X, cartoon thing, which sounds great. They need to bring that back to Saturday morning too. I'm never awake. Can we do this like Sunday night for us night owls? That would be great. I would appreciate that a lot. And then after that is the 1960s campy ass Batman with Robin wearing green dish gloves, and God, what a great show. We all loved that. If that was ever on after school and you could catch like a Batman episode, we always loved that. I always loved everyone who played Catwoman on there. And I think it was, I know it was Eartha Kitt. And my goodness, was it Julie Newmar? Those were the two Catwomans. And then Lee Merriweather was in the Batman movie that they made. That's my Saturday night, like a big old nerd. And then it's Star Trek, but usually by that time I'm half asleep. And I was never really into it before, but I remember watching when I was a kid, like the Honeymooners and stuff. And then I would fall asleep watching Star Trek, and then I would wake up and the lines were on the TV because we didn't have 24/7 TV like you guys do now. It actually, programming was like turned off after a while, came back on at like 6 a.m. with David and Goliath and Gumby. But anyway, this is all about Svengoolie. He just celebrated like 40 years of his show being syndicated, which is fantastic. I am a huge fan. To anyone that can get MeTV, wherever you can get it, definitely check out Svengoolie, Svengoolie, and the geeked out Saturday night with some popcorn or pizza or whatever you're doing. Because Gen Xers, we basically have turned back into college kids, but like the best kind, because we don't have term papers due. We can just hang out on a Saturday night if our kids aren't driving us too crazy. And I don't have kids, so I don't have kids to drive me crazy, to pick them up and drop them off and whatever. Maybe you can get your kids to watch some Svengoolie with you. I think that the more people that are into the classics of anything, the better. Like I said, I love progress, but I love tradition. I love antiques. I love old movies. And I just think that we need to keep those things alive. To me, that is art and that is love. So with that, watch some Svengoolie. This is the end of spooky season. I am so sad. And thank you for listening to this latest episode of Messy Closet. And don't forget to keep art and keep love.